get started. I'd like to start at this point in time and turn it over to Dr. Hill, who will give us some opening remarks before we get into our presentation.
Thank you, Deanna. My name is Jerry Hill, and I'm the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District. And I would like to thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in our webinar this morning. Before we get into the webinar, I just wanted to make a few comments. But first, I wanted to thank the planning team, our Classroom to Cloud planning team, and that'll be on the next slide, and I'll do the specific introductions in a second. But that planning team has been working tirelessly all summer. As you know, we've had several opportunities where we've shared information and sought feedback from not only staff, but parents and community members as well. This is another such opportunity. We recently did receive some more specific guidance from the governor, the My Safe Schools Return to Learning Roadmap. And then since we received that document, we've been looking at our planning and trying to apply the required and strongly recommended factors within that plan to our planning. So that guidance has proven to be very helpful. It is guidance, and we've chosen as a school district to follow the requirements of the roadmap as well as the strongly recommended portions of the roadmap. And so from that, we went back with our planning team and expanded our planning team actually, and we are trying to apply the logistics to how this will work. As you're aware, we do have a month before school starts, which seems like a long period of time, but it's really not. We're wanting to make sure that we have our plans in place finalized by the first part of August. And this opportunity today is to get information about our most recent Classroom to Cloud Return to Learn plan for the fall of 2020 and get your feedback. The feedback will not come via Q&A today. There will be a questionnaire that you will receive and a feedback form that we will be able to process and get all of that information not only on our website, but to our Board of Education. Our board will be deliberating and looking at the plan on July 27th, hopefully making a decision there then so that we can continue with our planning. So what you're hearing today is a recommendation. It's not, it's still a draft, and we still have opportunities to monitor and adjust as we go. And so at this time, I would like to introduce the members of our panel. Go to the second slide. As I said, I'm the superintendent of schools. We have Kyle Anderson with us today. He is the assistant superintendent of finance and operations. Deanna Barish, who you heard earlier, she's our assistant superintendent for teaching and learning. Catherine Law is our K-12 assessment, instruction, technology, and social studies coordinator. We have Amy Quinn, K-12 math science coordinator and advanced programming coordinator. We have Gianna Taylor, our K-12 English Language Arts, MTSS, and School Improvement Coordinator. Eric Whitney, Assistant Superintendent for Talent Development and Management. We also have Joey Spano, she's our Director of Community Education. And Laura Poxon, our Early Childhood Coordinator. Also joining with us, I believe, maybe Kim Abel, our Teachers Union representative. At this point, I'm going to turn this over back to Deanna, who will walk you through the major components of the program. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Hill. So once again, thanks to all of you for joining us this morning. We want to spend a pretty significant amount of time talking about our instructional plan, our safety plan, and our kind of protocols around screening and certainly transportation, food service, cloud care for students, and all those things. So this will be a lengthy presentation. It is going to be available on our website. It is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and watch it. But as Dr. Hill said, it continues to be an evolving situation for all of us. And I want you to take note in this very first slide about the quote that's on the right. So thank you to Laura Paxton, who provided this to us when we met on Sunday, actually, and started to talk about cloud care a little bit in more detail. It says, be clear about the goal, but flexible about the process and achieving it. And that's really what we're facing at this point in time. Our goal in West Bloomfield School District is to provide the highest quality instructional opportunities for your students as safely as possible during this pandemic. And so we know our goal is high quality instruction. We know that it's important for your children to interact with our teachers, to have the ability to learn, to be able to grow as students within the school district. And we also need to take into consideration their safety, their health, and that of our staff. And so the flexibility is the piece that we really need to focus on today. And I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about what we had presented before as our 2 days of in-person instruction, 3 days of remote learning, and this pivot to 4 half days of instruction K through 8. And we'll spend some considerable time talking this morning about what that's going to look like and the reason for the shift before we get into a little more of the protocols and sort of the managerial stuff of these things as well. As you remember, in May, we talked about our C2C return to learn plan. And that blended model for A was 2 days of in-person instruction, 3 days of at-home learning. And at that point in time, we felt that we could, without the governor's guidance from her return to school roadmap, that we would be able to meet the social distancing needs, that we would be able to meet the transportation needs, but not really sure what that was going to mean until we got her plan in late June. So we wanted to be responsive to our community, our staff, and certainly the needs of our students. And last week, we held a parent focus group as well as staff focus groups around our plans and garnered feedback. We had about 200 participants in that. We've continued to monitor. We've had Lakers Online forums where parents have asked questions about our return to learn. We've continued to monitor what's on our website, what's on Facebook, and so forth. So we've been continuing to collect feedback from our parents, our community, and our staff regarding our return to learn plan. When we received the governor's roadmap, we recognized that there were a number of required recommendations that were in her plan for phases 1 through 3, phase 4, and then phase 5. Currently, we are in phase 4 of the governor's return to learn roadmap. We're in phase 4. As a school district, as Dr. Hill said, we have decided that we're going to follow not only the required, but also the strongly recommended statements that are within that plan. And if you've not looked at her plan, it's quite extensive. It's 63 pages. It is guidance about what school districts should be doing on a number of fronts. This caused us to pause. And as Dr. Hill mentioned, we have classroom to cloud planning teams that exist in each of our schools, as well as a district planning team. In each classroom to cloud team, there are parents, there are educators, there are the principals, there are para-supports, secretaries. It's a widespread team within each building who is providing guidance to us and trying to make sure that the recommendations from the governor align with our planning. When we began to look at our plan in depth, we recognized that in order to socially distance, in order to have masks on students and staff, in order to be able to safely provide food service and transportation and to clean, that we needed to think differently about how we were going to deliver in-person instruction. We also recognized that it is a burden on our families to ask them to provide instruction to their students 3 days a week. It's a lot. And so, and it certainly will impact planning for your work lives. It impacts what happens at home. And we know that there's a need to get our students back in person as much as what we possibly can. So last night we shared with you a revised plan that includes the ability for us to see our students in kindergarten through 8th grade 4 half days a week. We went back and looked at and thought about what made cloud learning in the spring so successful. And that is primarily because we had established relationships with students. Our students wanted to log in because they wanted to see their teachers. They wanted to interact with their peers. They wanted to complete the work because they were part of that classroom. And then we feel that that is going to be a necessity in order to make sure that this continues to be a success in the fall. So we wanted to really rely on the ability to build relationships with students and staff from the very beginning. And 4 times a week will allow us to do this much more easily than just 2 full days. It provides consistency in instruction. Later in this presentation, you're going to be able to see what this model will look like in elementary and also in the middle school. We'll be really focusing on core instruction. And so we want to make sure that what we know is that's the most important part of what we're going to do at this time is to provide that consistency in instruction for our students. The remote learning responsibilities for you as a family are reduced. Those lessons that will be available in Canvas that'll be still there, that'll be provided by our teachers, will not ask that you do nearly as much as the teacher at home, but simply be additional structure for your students, practice, so a little pre-learning before they come to school each day, possibly some videos they need to watch, some readings they need to do, but it will not rely that you sit directly next to them and lead their learning. So the remote learning responsibilities on the part of the families will be greatly reduced. This also provides flexibility in our ability to provide services and supports. We know that there are concerns among some of our special populations, our students with special needs, our English language learners, our students who might have been involved in our Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, so receiving additional academic or emotional support, and what this lack of in-person instruction has done to them and to their growth as students. In a 4 half-day model, we're able to have students in those special populations stay and have additional time. What that model looks like exactly today, we're continuing to work, but this might mean that students are there that have special needs are able to stay for an additional period of time, and that we're able to begin to recover those gaps. We know that we have students who left us in March who had learning needs and emotional needs that were probably not met as well as they would have been had we been a bricks and mortar school. And we need to make sure that we begin to close those gaps and not cause them to grow. And we believe that this 4-day model will allow us the flexibility to provide additional support for our students. Again and again, we talk about safety and about health of both our students and our staff. And with this 4-day model, it negates the need to navigate lunch in the traditional sense. So there won't be time in the cafeteria. We'll talk about meal service later and what's going to be available for our students. We'll certainly make sure that there are meals available, but that negates that need to plan around lunch and multiple exposures. It will eliminate recess because they'll only be there for a half day, so we won't have to navigate how we keep kids safe when they go out to recess and away from each other and in masks. And then it also eliminates the need for mass passing time at the middle schools because the teachers will travel to the students rather than the students traveling to the teachers. So we felt that this was a really a safe model that we could at least reduce the risk to exposure for our students and our staff to multiple people within the building. It also allows for shorter blocks of time. So we began to think about middle school students who are required to wear masks all day long and thinking about sitting in a classroom for 6 or 6.5 hours, 2 days a week. That's a long time to be in a mask and to be in the same location, or maybe just 2 locations for their learning. These shorter chunks of time allow students to have the ability to not have to wear their masks all day long, but K-8 to be able to provide very intensive, intentional instruction around reading, math, science, and social studies in particular that will help to make sure that they have that foundational need that they need to start the school year to grow as learners as well. So those shorter blocks of time will also make sure that our elementary students have that flexibility too. They won't be in the same classroom all day long for multiple hours without the ability to move around and to interact. And so we feel the shorter blocks of time make more sense. We will be able to offer cloud care, and that's probably a missing component in what we shared last evening. And so we'll spend significant time. That's why Laura and Joey are on as panelists today as well. Cloud care we were planning to offer simply at one location in the district, and this will allow us to offer cloud care at your home school, again, reducing the risk of additional exposure. So if you are a working family like we are, and I would need to have childcare for my kids, I would be able to have them come to cloud care in the morning while I went to work before they went to in-person instruction in the afternoon. And we'll talk in depth about what that's going to look like further into the presentation. This is true kindergarten through 8th grade, so we're able to provide childcare as needed. It's consistent K-8. We were having conversations earlier in the weekend where we were really looking at why this was a positive model for our middle schools. And in that, we recognize that it also is a positive instructional model for our K-5 students as well. We also know that our families need the consistency for planning purposes. And so we'll talk a little bit about cohort A and cohort B, how students will be assigned to those. But please know, we will work with you and your family to do what we can to accommodate your schedules. Siblings will be in the same cohort across the district. So you'll not be planning for multiple schedules. And we will certainly take your needs into consideration, and you'll work with your building principals as we begin to cohort students, and that'll be coming in the coming weeks. We are maintaining our remote learning day as a Wednesday deep cleaning day for a variety of reasons. It does allow us to go in and do deep cleaning versus sanitation, which is what is required in the governor's plan. And so Wednesday will continue to be a remote learning only day. It also will give our teachers the opportunity, who will be teaching 4 full days a week, to provide and design and upload the remote learning lessons for you to access at home. And so they'll need that additional time to be able to make sure they're planning and creating and making available to you rigorous, meaningful remote learning lessons. So Wednesday allows us to deeply clean the buildings, allows us to go in and make sure that everything is set for the second half of the week. It also provides that time for our teachers to be able to give those remote learning lessons the time that they need in order to make sure that they're meaningful for your students. So as you can see, we have a number of reasons why we pivoted from what we had initially shared with you regarding the blended learning option for the fall, and really feel that as we proceed through this presentation, you'll see some additional details that will hopefully answer your questions and to help ease your minds about the planning that has gone into this, and why we feel that this will be our best model moving forward as we continue in phase 4. You also should know that if we are in phases 1 through 3, if as a state we're moved back to phases 1 through 3, that we will be in remote learning only. And the teaching and learning team is working with the building C2C teams and administrators to make sure that we are providing rigorous, meaningful online instruction for all K through 12 students. Additionally, when we move to phase 5, and I'm confident at some point we will get to move to phase 5 across the state, we will return to 5 days of in-person instruction with full groups of students. Certainly there will be additional safety protocols in place, but we will return to 5 days of in-person instruction when we move to phase 5 within the region. As you can imagine, planning for something like this has a number of factors that have to be considered. And we showed this slide in the spring when we talked about our C2C return to school plan, and all of those pieces that have a role in our planning to return. They're still there. We continue to seek stakeholder communication. You're getting weekly communication, if not more so, from us regarding your learning options. We have to talk about facilities and operations. Our board will have to adjust policies and governance based on our plans. We have to think about the health and wellness of our students and our staff. We have to make sure that our teachers are receiving the professional learning they need in order to be able to deliver in-person instruction and remote learning instruction. So we take each of these factors into consideration when making recommendations to all of our school board, and then obviously when we share those plans with you as community members as well. Again, very quickly, this is just what we had shared in the fall. It's our roadmap. So this is our blended model that's based upon the governor's return to school, those required and strongly recommended requirements. Plan B would be if we would have to return to phases 1 through 3 for stay-at-home order, so we would be learning remotely. And then obviously Plan C is Lakers Online, which we'll talk very briefly about tonight. Many of you have already heard about Lakers Online and participated in our webinars. We have growing enrollment in Lakers Online, and we're excited about having an option for families who just simply do not want their children to return at this time. We talked about, and I already alluded to, and you saw yesterday in our communication, what that roadmap A is going to look like. So it's students in cohort A will attend in-person instruction Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in the morning, and will participate in remote learning in the afternoon. Students in cohort B will learn remotely in the morning and attend in-person instruction Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday afternoons. Think about the old half-day kindergarten model that we've not had for several years here in the state of Michigan, and has been something that has shifted in educationally in the recent years, but it really looks at how to best deliver instruction as intensely as what we possibly can, and still keep students safe. I will say that we had a conversation yesterday, and Amy Quinn, who is our science coordinator and math coordinator K-12, did a former kindergarten and first grade teacher at Preschool for many, many years, did her graduate work and her graduate paper and research around the differences between half-day kindergarten and full-day kindergarten. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of research that suggests that academically there's any difference. We're just providing intense and blocks of time for instruction. And so we feel strongly that this will be the case for your students in kindergarten through 8th grade as we return in the fall. Again, as we talked about, students who need additional instructional opportunities would attend more than one day a week. We'll work through that in the coming weeks and be in touch with you if that pertains to your children as we move forward in our planning processes. And then our self-contained programs would meet 4 days a week. This allows for our center-based programs to have the support that they need and our students to be in person as much as possible. So that's where we are with our instructional roadmap A at this point in time. Lakers Online, just so you know, we've talked a lot about, and there's some additional information we'll share as we go. This is our fully online option that is instruction provided by West Bloomfield teachers. It is West Bloomfield curriculum. We recently placed an order for supplemental materials, not only for Lakers Online, but our regular K-5 students as well, and beginning to assemble those orders for 6 through 12. It's access to our West Bloomfield specials and their electives, the opportunities for live instruction, and certainly opportunity to participate in clubs and activities and sports as they are available during this pandemic. So we want you to also consider if you're really on the fence about whether or not you feel it's the best option for your family, whether you feel like it is safe and you're comfortable sending your kids back to school, Lakers Online is an excellent option for your children. And we've had numerous webinars and Q&A sessions. Those are available on our website if you need additional information. Kudos to Dan Durkin, who is our Public Relations Director. We have created a one-page document that outlines our preparations and our plans based on the phases across the state and the governor's return to school roadmap. It also links our return to learn document that Mr. Whitney is going to talk about later as well, and highlights our cleaning and transportation and food service protocols that Mr. Anderson will address too. It also has a link to the My Safe Schools roadmap, so you can see how we are indeed taking what is the recommendation and requirements from the state and applying them to what's happening in West Bloomfield. So we'll send this information out to you later today and make it available on our website, but it will serve as a good, quick at a glance document for you as you continue to study and to learn about what we're planning for the fall. I'm going to turn it over to Amy Quinn to have a little bit of brief conversation about what the bell schedule. We did not share the bell schedule with you last evening. And so I think that is probably some of the consternation is how are we going to be able to manage and to maintain and to clean and to transition students. So Amy, if you could talk a little bit about the bell schedule.
Yep, I sure will. So as you can see here, we have the AM start time and then the AM dismissal. And then we also have the time for the PM start time and the PM dismissal. So it will actually be 2 hours and 40 minutes of instructional time, and then 90 minutes in between the AM and the PM cohort. So that time will be used for the cleaning. Teachers can have their lunch and their prep. So the times are listed here. And I want to go over a little bit of the instructional model. I'm going to start with K-5. Teaching and learning, admin, and then each building C2C team has been working closely together on what the instructional model will look like. So here's just kind of a sample. As we talked about earlier, it's really that essential standards that will be taught for the in-person. That is really where the priority is going with the teaching. That's when the teachers are able to do those small groups. They'll be able to do their reading workshop lessons, guided reading, and then of course a big focus on math and time for science and social studies. We have to realize that the remote learning, it's going to look different than it did in the spring. And that is because we have that in-person time with our students. So the remote is really looking at different tasks and different things for the students to then prepare for when they're in person with their teacher. So they might be, reading that book. So when they get to their teacher, they're going to be working on maybe some comprehension questions. Maybe they're doing their writing, so they're ready for conferring. Maybe there's a quick math screencast that they're just kind of reinforcing something so they're prepared for the next time that they're in person with their teacher. Looking at middle school, again, it's really that focus on ELA, science, math, and history. So, a good 40-minute for each subject area. And then the remote schedule, that will be when the electives will take place. So we have listed, the same electives that middle school students are used to, and they'll be offered.
Thank you, Amy. So we just wanted you to see on a very high level what that instructional model will look like K through 8. We recognize the importance that students still have the opportunity to participate in specials at the elementary and elective courses at the middle school. And so we will work with those teachers to develop those robust lessons remotely. Please know that when we return to phase 5 and we're back in 5-day-a-week in-person instruction, the schedules will resume as normal. So we will come back to regular bell schedules, regular special schedules, all those kind of things will come back into place when we return to phase 5. But until then, we have to make sure that, that we can cohort students. I want to make sure that you understand that in the middle school model and in the elementary model, that students don't leave their location. The teachers come to them, the students don't move. And that certainly eliminates multiple opportunities for exposure across the district within the building. So we want to make sure that you understand that the teachers are traveling to the kids are not traveling to the teachers as well. The high school will remain online until we move to phase 5, and we shared that information with all of you last week. There were a number of factors that played into this decision, not the least of which is that safety and health of our students and our staff. A building of over 1,800 students is a tough one to schedule and to manage on a good day, let alone when we're trying to figure out what that schedule will look like during a pandemic. Quite frankly, with the number of students, even if we brought in half at a time, that's still over 900 students, and been able to ensure that they could move about the building safely, and that our staff would also have minimal exposure was, quite frankly, very, very difficult. It would cause us to have to make some decisions regarding courses that we could offer or not offer, and those sorts of things. And so it will provide continuous uninterrupted instruction delivered remotely by our teachers. We know that what we may face, and we could very well face in our K-8 buildings, is that we have a positive case and we might be forced to, under the direction of the Oakland County Health Department, we might have to quarantine or we might have to close for a period of time. And we did not want that for our high school because it would be very disruptive to their learning during a critical point as they prepare for the next part of their life after graduation. That we have a new learning management system that you're going to see a little bit today called Canvas, that we wanted to make sure that you could see this great learning management tool that we've adopted across the district. Tomorrow, the high school department chairs, the high school administrative team, and their C2C teams are meeting with us to really develop that instructional model. We heard loudly and clearly from our parents from across the district, and certainly from our staff as well, that we need to make sure that we have increased rigor and expectations for our high school students. As a mom of 2 high schoolers, I can tell you that when the governor said attendance didn't count and you were going to pass no matter what, there suddenly is this depletion of lack of desire to do their very best work. And so we know that now there are higher expectations. That is not the case. Attendance is mandatory. There will be grades. They will be expected to complete work daily. They will be expected to engage with their teachers. What exactly that's going to look like, we will start to develop and be ready to share with all of you as high school parents during our webinar next Tuesday, July 28th at 7 p.m. We want to make sure that across the board, no matter what, we're keeping you in the loop and that you have the opportunity to learn firsthand what's happening. And I would only reiterate exactly what Dr. Hill started with. It's July, and we've had multiple parent opportunities for you to listen, for you to provide feedback, for you to see what our plan is, when in many cases that's not happening across the state. And so we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to hear our high school plan next Tuesday, and so that you can kind of help your child too prepare for what that back to school is going to look like for them. Again, when we return to phase 5, high school will also come back for 5 days of in-person instruction. Sorry, I'm trying, my mouse is not cooperating. Sorry, there we go. Lakers Online, just very, very briefly, the thing we'd like to highlight the most with Lakers Online is that the deadline for our in-district students to indicate their interest is Monday, July the 27th. And our schools of choice outside the district is August the 3rd. We've had an increase in the last few days of interest in Lakers Online. So you can find that information on our website. We have a full Lakers Online webpage. It is going to be a rigorous, self-paced, really self-directed program for our students who are not yet ready to return to bricks and mortar school. There's a lot of information that we've already shared with you that I'm not going to reiterate today. I will direct you to the website so that you can get any questions answered. We have an opportunity for you to ask questions via an email address as well. And so we just want to make sure that you know that July 27th is the deadline. You probably asked yourself, why do they need to know right now? It's a month before school starts. Quite frankly, we need to be able to have our staff trained. We need to identify who those staffs are. We need to make sure that we get your children loaded into Canvas. We need to make sure that you get devices in your hands and that there's parent and student orientation. So that's really the push to get these decisions made so that we can appropriately plan for the instruction across the district. I just want you to know that Oakland Early College is operating on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday blended model, remote learning only model that we had previously shared with everyone. They scheduled their college courses. Oakland Community College is not returning to in-person instruction. They are staying online. And so there was a necessity for OEC to make their determination and to share that with their families so that they could schedule for their college courses as well. So OEC is continuing in the blended model that we talked about previously. I'm now going to take a breath and turn it over to Joey Paxson and to Joey Spano and Laura Paxson, sorry about that, who are going to talk about our cloud care options for our return to school in the fall. So Laura and Joey. You probably need to unmute yourselves.
Joey, unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Just as the district has been working hard to formulate all these plans, our community education department has also been working hard to provide a plan for childcare and for our cloud care particularly, in conjunction to our regular Kids Club program. And obviously this is going to be compatible with what Ms. Parrish has been proposing. And also it's our goal is to keep our children safe and also to meet the needs of working parents. So what we are proposing is a cloud care for AM and PM will be available for all registered students on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at the student's home school as space allows. And then also Kids Club, our regular Kids Club program for before and after school childcare that we've offered for years will continue in the student's school as usual. Our times for cloud care, AM or PM, is the time your child will not be in the classroom for in-person instruction. Those are the times when we will be in charge of your children, and we have a whole schedule that Ms. Paxson will review in just a minute, sort of a sample view of what the day would look like. And then of course, our traditional Kids Club program will continue to provide care from 6:45 in the morning before school starts, and then after school until 6:30 in the evening. Our costs have been determined to, all we're trying to do is cover our costs. So families using cloud care AM or PM will be charged a fee of approximately $15 per session to cover program costs. And then of course, our traditional Kids Club and Tween Time programs will charge its regular rates for AM and PM care. And people have been registering for traditional Kids Club since the spring. Families, of course, will still have opportunities to apply for assistance through the Department of Health and Human Services, as they've done for years. We have not set a date yet for registration for cloud care because it really doesn't make sense. You need to know, parents need to know where their children will be in either cohort A or cohort B before you're going to sign up and develop a schedule for the cloud care. So as soon as that information is out and as soon as all the students are assigned accordingly, we will put something on our website and our registration times will be open for you to register. Laura Poxon is our early childhood and school age child care coordinator, and she's going to review what the Cloud Care Day would look like. Laura, please.
Yep. So, Amy, can we go to the schedule for Cloud Care? Thank you. So here's just a sample example of what a day in Cloud Care, either the AM session or the PM session would look like. So once AM Kids Club is dismissed and students in cohort A go to their in-person class instruction, that Cloud Care AM session will have some free time to do some tabletop activities, arts and crafts, or some board games. And then your students will also have some specific time set aside to do that cloud learning with staff assistance. So when your child's supposed to be working on that remote learning piece, they will have that option to do that during Cloud Care with staff assistance. And then our coordinator of enrichment with community education, Andrea Fogletta, will be providing enrichment activities where she's going to do some organized art, some dance, some creative expression, and even some STEAM activities with the students while they're in our Cloud Care. Then they'll be able to grab their lunch, eat lunch, be ready to go before they go into cohort B for their in-person instruction. And then Cloud Care in the PM would work the same as the AM. They'll also have that option for that enrichment activities with Andrea Fogletta. They'll have their specific time for cloud learning, and then they'll have some free time before they go home for the day. Now for our preschool, our early childhood plan, our goal, as always, is to ensure that our preschool students and our staff return to school in a safe and nurturing environment. So we will also be following our licensing requirements, the governor's roadmap, and also our district plans to ensure that our students and staff return to a safe environment. Part of that will be our locations for school. So we're going to be providing our regular programs at all of our normal locations with one exception. So ACS will be the only school that will provide preschool on Wednesdays. So we'll continue to have our stepping stones in junior kindergarten offered Monday through Friday, and our traditional 3s and traditional 4s preschool programming. Scotch will continue to offer our GSRP, but instead of going Monday through Thursday with Friday at a day off of school, they will go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Chico will continue to offer our stepping stones in junior kindergarten programming, also with the exception of Wednesdays. So Chico will be closed on Wednesdays, but parents will have the option to come to ACS for preschool at ACS on Wednesdays. Chico will have their own classroom, their own teachers here at ACS. And then Chico will also continue to offer our GSRP program on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Gretschko will also continue to offer our traditional 3s and our traditional 4s, but Gretschko will also be closed on Wednesdays. So our traditional 4 preschool program will go into a virtual learning on Wednesdays. And we plan to have a Zoom meeting with just Gretschko traditional 4s preschool parents to discuss what that will look like in more detail, answer any questions, and share all of those parents' options. As with the kindergarten through 12th grade, we also have parents that are hesitant about sending their preschoolers back to school. So we wanted to make sure that we offered a virtual learning for our preschool families. So our preschool teachers have been working closely with Amy Quinn to create a preschool platform on Canvas that is both age appropriate for our preschool learners and also easy for our preschool families to use. It's also very individualized and very purposeful instruction. So we wanted this to be very purposeful in the sense of where your child is and where we want your child to go next. Children will be working on specific goals. Both teachers and parents will be working together. For example, if your child's working on recognizing numbers 1 to 10, your virtual learning is going to have activities planned to help your child meet that goal of recognizing those numbers 1 to 10. All of your materials will be provided. So your child will get a little drawstring bag, and inside it will have their scissors, glue sticks, a whiteboard, counters, a variety of things that you will be able to use with your child at home for their virtual learning. So you'll have everything that you need as your teacher plans these activities for your child. We're always happy to answer any questions or concerns that you might have about preschool moving forward. So we would like to plan a preschool parent Zoom meeting where you can ask questions. We can go into more detail about what our preschool classrooms will look like. So Colette Gosentines will be sending an email that will have that information to you directly coming soon. So, thank you.
We already went through this slide, so thank you, Laura and Joey, for sharing this information. Certainly, cloud care will be very important to many of our families, and so as always, please reach out to Joey or to Laura with more information. We are working diligently, and one of the things we'll talk about a little bit is about timeline and when you might know which cohort your children will be attending and some of those factors that play into that when we talk about transportation. And certainly what your needs might be. So please make sure that to reach out to Laura or Joey if you have questions about cloud care and need to know those next steps as well.
Thank you.
We also want to talk a little bit, I'm going to turn over to Amy Quinn about our technology updates and what we're doing. I want you to just very quickly, I have to give a huge thank you to my teaching and learning team, particularly to Amy Quinn, to Catherine Law, and to Gianna Taylor, who are on this call today. They have literally been working round the clock, really since March, really since about March 10th when all of this began, to make sure that they are supporting teachers and supporting parents and supporting students across the district to make sure that we have high quality teaching and learning occurring every single day in every single classroom. And one of those big undertakings that Amy is going to talk a little bit about today was the adoption of Canvas, our new learning management system. We heard loudly that while Google Classroom did the job, it wasn't necessarily the best tool for us to continue to do remote learning. And so we made the decision, and thank you to the school board for supporting the decision, to move to Canvas. And you're going to have the opportunity as parents to learn more about it. She's created a great screencast so you can get a bird's eye view of what's happening with Canvas. It does have an app, so you can download it and put it on your phone, and it's awesome. It's easy to read, and it's easy to use. And we also had the board who made the commitment to purchase brand new Chromebooks for every single student in the district. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how those will be distributed in the coming weeks as well. So the district has made a commitment to making sure that there's high quality instruction, no matter whether we're learning at home or we're learning in person. And so kudos to the teaching and learning team and certainly to our district for making sure that we put our students first. So Amy, you want to talk a little bit about our technology, please?
Yes, thank you. I sure will. So those Chromebooks, they will be available the first 2 weeks of August at West Bloomfield High School. More information will be coming about delivery. And also Wi-Fi hotspots will be available for families that need that. Canvas is our new learning management system. So what we did was we actually rolled out our professional development for teachers over the summer through Canvas. That way teachers were able to see the features in Canvas as an adult learner to then think about what they would want to transfer to their classroom. What we did was we had different modules. So not only were they seeing what Canvas had to offer, but they were learning different techniques for blended learning, for social emotional support, anti-racism, content, and then Canvas training. So those were all the different modules that were within the teacher professional development. We heard, yep, we can go to the next slide, thank you. So we heard from parents that parents really wanted to see what is Canvas all about? You know, what does it really have to offer? How is it different? So what we did was we put together a slideshow and we took screenshots of actual Canvas professional development, but also there's links to at least 4 videos that will take you through, you know, the really nice features of Canvas and the parent view, a little bit about the app, about an observer role that you can take. But students are able to collaborate, have discussions, submit assignments. Teachers are able to use Studio, which is really embedding videos, screencasts. Teachers are able to create quizzes, embed Google Apps. and also use external apps such as Bruzel, Flipgrid, or Jamboard. So on the next slide, what we did is I actually took some screenshots. You can go right to the next one. So this is an example that you'll see. It's on our district website. This is just 4 of the examples, but we wanted to show you certain things. So for example, we're going to have an elementary and a secondary template, and that'll be really nice. It'll be consistent, say within elementary, different grade levels, on how to access and navigate through Canvas. So the example with the arrow pointing on the left, there's different ways that you can navigate through Canvas. It could be through quick access buttons, or it could also be, that would be on the home page, or you could click through modules. On the upper right, we've got the templates and kind of what they're going to be looking like. And the structure will be the same for the home page, but of course it'll be personalized for each teacher. And then once students click within the modules, teachers will personalize their pages. An example of Studio is in the bottom left. What's really nice is that the video is embedded right on the page. Studio also has a feature where you can stop for some discussion points, comment, and you can even put different kind of quiz questions in. And then the bottom right, that's an example we mentioned about how it's a great integration with Google Apps. And so that's an example of Google Docs, where students could be working collaboratively in a group on a Google Doc, and it's directly right on the Canvas page. So please make sure to check out our website for more information on Canvas.
Thank you, Amy. So yes, and there is a great tutorial for parents. I'm certain we'll have more as time goes, as we get closer to the start of the school year, but this is available on our website. Dan will make sure that we get it sent to all of you so you know where to find it. And it'd be great for you to get in and take a look at all the features that Canvas has to offer for our students and certainly for you as parents as well. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Eric Whitney, who is our Director of Talent Development and Management, to talk a little bit about something that we know is on the minds of many of our families around safety protocols and those sorts of things as we return to school. So Mr. Whitney.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here to talk to you about our safety protocols and some of the things that again, as Deanna said, we know are really on everyone's mind. And these are the things that probably keep you up at night as parents and have you asking about really the best path forward for your students. So we're going to spend take a high level view of these 5 topics here: face coverings, hygiene, spacing, movement, and access, screening and testing, and responding to a positive test. And the reason I say a high-level view is because I just want to point out to you that all of these are linked and aligned with much more detailed information that you will find in our Return to Learn plan. You should have received that plan last evening by email. You may not have had time to read it all. It's pretty extensive, but I would highly recommend spending some time with that, because you will have a chance to really delve more in depth into these topics and really understand how our expectations will be sort of laid out in conjunction with the phases of disease spread that we are in. So you will see for each of these topics what that will look like in phases 1 through 3 in our schools, what that will look like in phase 4 in our schools, and what that will look like once we transition to phase 5. So very important that you take a look at our Return to Learn plan when you get a chance. So I hear a lot of questions about face coverings, and I think that is something that people have really been asking. And again, we are taking our guidance on these issues from the My Safe Schools plan that was released by our governor and her task force just a bit ago. So face coverings must be worn by all staff in our buildings at all times except for meals. So that is our expectation for our employees, is that they will be wearing masks at all times. Face coverings must be worn in the classroom by students in grades 6 through 12. We highly encourage, they are not required, but we are definitely highly encouraging the use of face coverings in classrooms for students in grades pre-K through 5. But we certainly understand that there are some developmental things there with young children that make that a little more challenging. So that is why we did not require that, but we do highly recommend that. We we recommend that you get your child a mask that will be comfortable for him or her. And we'd like to, I know from my own sort of life and not being used to wearing a face covering, it's taken me some time to really become accustomed to that, to feel comfortable with it. So we think August is a great month for you to start practicing with that face covering. Get one that is comfortable, one that they like to wear, that fits them well, because we have little faces for some of our folks out there. We want to make sure that is something that they can be successful with. Face coverings must be worn by all students. That's all grades pre-K through 12 in hallways and in common areas. Face coverings must be worn on school transportation. So that is a very important component, that if you are sending your child on the bus, he or she must have that face covering to get on the bus. Face coverings can be homemade, or they can be disposable level 1, which is that very, very basic surgical mask. And the purpose of the face coverings is really to just contain your germs, I guess I would say, right in there. Although now we're starting to read that those do have a function as personal protective equipment as well. So we think those are important steps. Continuing on, I want to just share with you that if your child, or this applies to our staff members as well, if anyone is unable to tolerate a face covering and would not be able to wear that, of course, there are exceptions in the governor's executive order and in the plans. We do require documentation of that issue. So be that a medical documentation clearance, be that paperwork related to a child's disability, a special education IEP, a 504 plan, etc. So if you are thinking forward, please bear that in mind. We get asked a lot about what happens if students are not wearing their mask properly, or if they refuse, or if they're not doing that. And I would just remind everyone that our student code of conduct does address students' failure to follow school rules. And so this issue of face coverings would fall under the student code of conduct in that area. And that is a tool by which our administrators and our teachers would address those issues. Finally, we would just, a piece of advice and something for our parents to consider, that if there are concerns or objections to wearing a face covering, we would definitely recommend that you consider Lakers Online as an option, because those face coverings are expected in our buildings. Turning to hygiene, I want to talk a little bit, of course, about hand washing, and I do hear questions often from parents about what will be available to their students. I know that Mr. Anderson and Mr. Stinson in our maintenance department have been really busy ordering and getting the supplies that we need, and to make sure that we have hand sanitizer available in every classroom. Unfortunately, not all of our classrooms have sinks for hand washing, so we want to make sure that hand sanitizer at the proper percentage of chemicals in there is appropriate. So we've been procuring that this summer. They will be in all of our classrooms, in common areas, in hallways, in offices, etc. We are developing hand washing signage that will be posted around our buildings and visible, so you will see that. Our teachers and in consultation with public health nurse, will be developing hand washing lessons that will be a part of classroom instruction, and also scheduled as part of their daily routine. So principals and teachers will be developing that hand washing schedule. It will be posted. You will be able to kind of know, students will know exactly what that is. Classroom procedures will limit the sharing of supplies, such as writing utensils. I know that in an elementary classroom, it's of course very common that there is a bin of pencils on the table that we all share from, and so teachers and principals will be rethinking those classroom procedures to make sure that students are using only their own supplies throughout the day. Students' personal items will also be kept in separate containers, separate from everyone else's, in separate lockers or in cubbies as is appropriate to the school setting. So thinking a little bit about spacing and movement and access, that is the section in our Return to Learn plan that you will see that really deals with things like social distancing and placement of students in classes. Every effort is being made to keep our students spaced apart at the appropriate recommendations and also facing forward. Please know, of course, that our classrooms are different sizes across the district, even within the same building. So the square footage in classrooms, the type of furniture also dictate how some of those things will play out. We are advising our teachers that they should maintain 6 feet of spacing between themselves and their students as much as possible. I know that is very antithetical to what our teachers know and love and practice usually. So this is some rethinking about the classroom routines for our teachers as well. They're used to being in close proximity to students. Our early elementary students, they hug teachers, and while we love that, it really is a time period that's going to look a little bit different in our classrooms. I should also mention that, we do want teachers to be able to continue to work with individual students in small groups. So we are providing in our classrooms those plexiglass barriers that everyone has sort of gotten used to. I think when you go into any restaurant or store or wherever you may be shopping, doing your business and banking, whatever, we're used to seeing those now, and those will be provided in classrooms so that teachers and students can work together one-on-one and in small groups. We will be very severely restricting visitor access to all of our schools when we return in phase 4. We did not say no visitors because we do know that there will be a time, I'm sure, when a visitor needs to drop off something that a student forgot or may have some business to attend to at the school. However, we're really encouraging parents to do business with school personnel via phone or via email as much as possible. If visitors do need to come to school for some purpose, they will be really limited to the main office only. And please know that there are certain protocols that will be in place for any of the visitors entering our buildings. Visitors will be required to wear a face covering. We will ask them to wash their hands or sanitize upon entering. We will screen them for symptoms and exposure to COVID-19. And we will also be recording contact information should we need that from them in the future. No visitors to our classrooms will be permitted during this phase 4. So if you are used to volunteering in the class or tutoring with students, being that room mother, I would say, in early elementary, those things will not be permitted under phase 4 as we return to school. We will be talking a little bit about our screening and testing procedures. As you get into our return to learn plan, you will see some more in-depth information about that. Of course, we will cooperate fully with all public health orders and our officials. And we say that because screening and testing protocols have evolved since this pandemic began. And so we will respond to their guidance and we'll make adjustments as necessary. In each of our schools, our principals will designate an isolation area that is away from others, that will have a door that may close, specific supplies in there. And students who become ill at school with potential symptoms of COVID-19 will be placed in that isolation area until they can be picked up by a parent. All of our employees, when they are coming to work, are required to complete a daily entry self-screening protocol. And at this time, a frequent question I hear is, will all employees or will all students have to be tested and test negative for COVID-19? And that is not being recommended at this time in the guidance from the governor's task force in that My Safe Schools plan. So we will only, testing will only be recommended or required for individuals that develop symptoms. If a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19, of course, our school district will be cooperating fully with our public health officials, and they will really be guiding that situation in terms of the decisions that we make. We will be notifying immediately the health department. We have a protocol in place for notifying them of any student or staff that should have a positive test. We will also notify our staff and families of that possible case of COVID-19. Of course, while being very careful about confidentiality, but I think you're all pretty used to how we communicate with you about communicable diseases, and it will be done in much the same manner with COVID-19. Oakland County Health Division then, once they receive that report from us of a positive case, they will really initiate and direct how the contact tracing is undertaken. We will follow their guidance on that, but of course, our school district will be supporting that and really will be supplying the information that they need to be able to do that tracing so that we can alert individuals that need to know and take all of the proper steps to make sure that everyone is safe. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about some of these issues that I know are weighing on parents' minds. Don't forget to check the Return to Learn plan, and you can read much more in depth about all of them. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle Anderson, is going to continue sort of along this line about safety on some additional topics.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the operations side of the school district, and that really is the food service department, the transportation department, and our custodial and maintenance areas. And I want to do a quick shout out to the leaders in those departments. Ann Stevens is our food service director, Lynn Robertson, our transportation director, and Ted Stinson is our director of facilities. All of whom have worked tirelessly this summer and will continue over the next month or so to get us ready for the start of school. And our focus really in our meetings was on problem solving. There were focused discussions on solving some of the many logistical issues and really supporting any instructional plan that came out in whatever form it ends up being. So we were very, very fortunate, very kind of relieved when the governor released the MI Safe school plan, because it gave us an opportunity to sort of plan and get some concrete decisions made. So the first department is food service. And our plans really model the 6-phased approach for the governor reopening the state. So phases 1 through 3, schools are closed for in-person instruction, and we would continue the meal distribution as we did in the spring last school year. When we move into phase 4, which is where we are currently, there are some additional safety protocols that we have to have in place. And the nice thing about food service, there is a requirement for food service staff to have what's called the Serve Safe certification for safe food prep. And our staff already have that training. The additional protocols are, wearing face coverings and using gloves and washing your hands every time you take your gloves off, or anytime you start a new procedure in the kitchen. So those are some of the additional staff safety protocols. When we do return, we will not be using the cafeterias in the traditional sense. So, if we're working with the Michigan Department of Education to determine if it's a grab and go or if it is classroom time to consume meals, but meals will be individually packaged, and there's no sharing of utensils or anything like that. That is a requirement in the governor's plan, and we will follow that. We are also working hard to encourage the use of prepaid meal accounts. So we want to limit the exchange of bills and coins for any paid students, paid meals. So one of the things we've done is eliminated the transaction fee on those accounts. So parents, when they use those accounts, will not see that transaction fee. The district is covering that transaction fee. And of course, in phase 4, we do have the high school will be online and the Lakers online. So we will have a distribution system set up for all of our online learners. And when we transition to phase 5, There really isn't too many changes in our safety protocols for food service. We will have protective barriers in place, which, for the most part, we already have. You've seen, sneeze guards, I think they're called, but there may be some additional protective barriers that we need to add in the cafeterias. We'll also stagger meal times if we determine that we're going to use the cafeterias. So in transportation, we are implementing an opt-in system this year. So we are providing transportation to and from school, but we are only designing our routes for those families who wish to choose the service. So back on July 10th, we sent a form out, and we will continue to stress the importance, and we'll send it out again to families here this week, but we're hoping to get those registration forms back by July 31st for any families who wish to use our transportation services. And from the forms we've received so far, it's actually about the same percentage of families in our district who use transportation in a normal year. We're about 30% of our families choose to transport their students to and from school. So we're tracking kind of close to a traditional school year. And one of the reasons we're doing this opt-in system is because, social distancing requires, will require less capacity on a school bus. So I'll give you an example. We have two main models of school buses. We have a 77 passenger bus and we have a 65 passenger bus. So the 77 passenger bus will have the capacity to transport about 26 students. And a 65 passenger bus will be about 22 students. So, and that of course includes, siblings will be able to sit together, and we will be using assigned seating on our buses. So that is one of the recommendations, one of the requirements, I should say, in the governor's plan that we will be following. Phases 1 through 3 in the reopening plan by the governor, there's no in-person instruction, so transportation is not an issue. So for staff and students, that's pre-K through 12, face coverings are required to ride on a school bus. We do have clearance from the Michigan State Police, that's the organization that oversees the maintenance of our buses, to have a hand sanitizing station available. So when each student enters the bus, they're required to use it, and then the bus will move on. We are disinfecting the buses before and after each route, and we're using the EPA approved disinfectant. And we will be training our drivers to properly apply the disinfectant and make sure that they are safe when they do this, and that the bus, the disinfectant allows the dwell time so it can be effective. And then we are, aerating the bus and leaving the windows open so it dries. And to further continue the transportation discussion, we're going to also use a spray misting device in the morning, before each AM run, and then before each afternoon route. This really is allowing us to be more efficient in time. It's a device that is going to spray an EPA registered disinfectant and hit all the hard surfaces on the bus and ensure that our students are safe when they're transported. When we move into phase 5, we are going to be open for in-person instruction. That includes the high school. So our bell times will revert back to the normal bell times, and I think they were discussed a little bit earlier in the presentation. So I want to move on to cleaning, which is probably one of the areas we're receiving the most questions, and it's really cleaning and disinfecting. So there really isn't much distinction in phases 4 through 5 in what our plans are to disinfect our buildings and keep our students and staff safe. One of the requirements and one of the things we're doing is identifying frequently touched areas that will be disinfected every 4 hours with an EPA-approved disinfectant. And although this was not the driving force behind the half-day instructional model, it did, my ears kind of poked up when I saw that, because it gave us the opportunity to, hit those high-touch areas in each room in that hour and a half between the AM and the PM. So we will have adequate staff to accomplish that task. We will identify and train our custodial staff on what are high-touch areas, what disinfectant should be used. There's actually a difference between sanitizing and disinfecting. Sanitizing is really lowering the number of microbes and bacteria and viruses on a surface, where disinfectant kills bacteria and of course the COVID virus. So we will have our custodial staff undergo very specific training that is aligned with our plans and the EPA and CDC guidance. I'd also like to mention that we're working with our partner, DM Burr is our custodial partner, and we are working to have the ability as a district to have say and really decisions in recruitment and hiring staff. So we can ensure that we have the highest quality custodians in our building and performing all of these tasks. We have developed a system for our custodians to really it's really administrative oversight. It's a system of job cards where we can easily check to see that all of the tasks and all the timelines are being met each day for the disinfecting and cleaning. And continuing on, next slide, please. We're also going to utilize the spray misting device. There are a few restaurants that actually have publicized maybe a video. I've seen one on their website where they kind of show this thing in action. It's very similar. It sprays small particles of this disinfectant in a room, and we can disinfect a space very quickly. This has to be done when students and staff are not in the building. And I know Deanna mentioned that Wednesday is a time to do the deep cleaning, and certainly after hours and Wednesdays would be a great time that we can run through and disinfect all of our areas using this device. We will, as I think Eric kind of mentioned, have physical barriers installed in areas where physical distancing is difficult, and that really includes the offices. We are going to limit visitors to our buildings, but when that's unavoidable, we will have physical barriers in place and all of the protective equipment for our staff so we can keep everyone safe. And at this point, I would like to turn it back to Deanna, and I think you have some final thoughts.
Sure, thank you, Kyle. So we hope that in this pretty lengthy presentation today, we were able to touch on a number of your concerns and to explain our thinking as we can get ready to return to school in August. And your educational options, quite frankly, is you need to do what's best for your family. You heard about cleaning, you heard about making sure that we're going to ensure we have enough custodial staff. You know what food service is going to look like. Please complete the transportation survey if you've not done so. So kind of some final thoughts today that are really driving our next steps. We will continue to monitor the governor's communications, and we will obviously need to adjust our plans accordingly. If indeed we return to phases 1 through 3 as a region or as a state, then we will move to remote learning only. If we move to phase 5, then we will return to 5-day of in-person instruction. So your continued engagement with us and being available and checking the website and certainly interacting with your building staff, your building principals and your teachers will be very, very important. We will continue to update you weekly on our progress and planning, what those days will look like, when we'll have some pretty solid timeline around cohorting, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, and when you might know a little bit more about those things. Don't hesitate to ask your questions. I know that sometimes it might feel like, or we may feel like, quite frankly, we take a lot of shots, and I guess I would be remiss if I also didn't say there is no perfect plan in this situation. No matter what we do, it's not going to necessarily meet the needs of our entire community. What we have tried to do every step of the way is to engage you and our staff and our students in the conversations. We've had staff focus groups, we've had family focus groups, we've had student focus groups, we've had surveys, we've continued to respond to emails to the board, emails to Dr. Hill, emails directly to myself, anything that's come in via our website. We've continued to engage, consider your perspectives, and then certainly answer those to the best of our ability at this time. We know that this may not be your ideal plan. This is probably not anybody's ideal plan. But in a situation that we face as a country right now, as an area, as a school district, we are doing what we believe is best, and to be able to provide with that goal in mind, the highest quality instructional opportunities for our students in the safest manner possible. And so we want you to ask your questions. We will be sending a Google form link later today. It will not be until after the 7 p.m. webinar. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to listen and to hear the presentation first before we send out another opportunity to ask questions, because we hope and we believe that we answered many of your questions today. And so while maybe not necessarily satisfied you or made you feel exactly what you wanted, we've answered many of your questions. And so we will make sure that you have another opportunity to ask questions. We'll send that link out via school messenger this evening. We always want to do what's best for our students and for our staff. This is not an easy decision for anyone. I know as a parent, when you have to sit back and think about sending my sons back to school and the options that are being provided to them, I have to do what is best for our family, and I have to do what's best for my kids and where we are right now. And it is not without a lot of consternation and a lot of thought about what is doable, what is feasible, what is best for them. We do that, you do that as your children, as parents of your children. We do that as those who are providing education to almost 5,800 students across the district. We understand, and we've been very transparent from the very beginning, that what we're going to do in West Bloomfield is what's best for our West Bloomfield students. Other districts across the county, other districts across the region are going to choose to do other things. And that's fine, because they are other districts. We worry about our families and we worry about our students. And so we want you to know that none of this is being taken lightly, that it is with the utmost seriousness and sincerity and certainly reflection and responsiveness that we continue to make changes and adjustments to our return to school plan in the fall. We hope that we have a good plan in place now. We hope that we have satisfied your questions. Please know that we need you to complete that transportation survey. And we need you to be very clear. If you're not going to ride the bus, or it's a long shot, please don't reserve a spot if that's not the case. If you really believe you're going to drive your children every single day or most days, please don't take a spot on the bus, because we are going to need to accommodate for everybody. But we need that feedback, because that's going to drive how we cohort students. So we want to make sure that we can evenly divide transportation 50% and 50% between AM and PM. So it is imperative that we have a response to that transportation survey by the July 31st, so that our principals can then begin to cohort siblings, be in contact with each of you about what that schedule will look like, so that indeed if you need childcare through our cloud care program, that you can register for those spots as well. So it's a domino effect. And we talked about this as a cabinet, as a team this week. This is a gigantic puzzle. And there are moving parts in this puzzle, which makes it even more difficult, because every time we think we get the corner set, then something changes. And so we need to make sure that you understand that we're juggling a number of concerns and balls, and making sure that nothing gets dropped, and that we take into consideration each of those things, but that we can't tell you today that you're going to be in cohort A, or tomorrow that you're going to be in cohort B, until all those layers are in place, and we can make sure that we're adequately and correctly assigning students and then letting you know. So please continue to monitor your email, continue to jump on our website. We have a number of updates. Look at our social media. We also update there frequently. And at the end of the day, when we send out the link, if you continue to have very specific questions and things you don't feel we addressed adequately, do not hesitate to submit your question, and someone will be in touch with you. We appreciate your time this morning. We know that an hour and a half is a long time. But we wanted to make sure that we gave you a comprehensive look at this plan, that we addressed each of the components that are probably weighing heavily on your mind. And hopefully we are able to answer a number of your questions and concerns today. This will be available on our website. We will have this posted so you can go back and access both the presentation and the webinar. Thanks again for being a West Bloomfield parent, for being involved in your child's educational experience, and for being partners with us as we continue to design our Classroom to Cloud Return to School plan. Have a great rest of your day.